Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Bruce with Habowskistudio. Thanks for joining me today. Since we've been having some little strange weather here in Maine, nothing outlandish, just a lot of cloudy weather and that sort of thing. And also this time of year I tend to get more into studio work. I thought tonight, since I have a little bit of time, I have about an hour, I just wanted to have a little play date in the studio. And what I'm going to do today is a little palette knife painting on an old painting I have laying around the studio. So let's get started on this. Now in some past videos I've done before, I have incorporated a little bit of palette knife work and manipulated it with the brush. And in this piece I'm just going to try to really do about 90% of it as palette knife and see how far I can take it. I'll be using different mark making, of course, palette knife. I favor this a lot actually. It's a very, you can see how it's stepped off there and the shape of it. So that's what I'm going to be using, especially for this scale of this piece. Of course, if I had a wider palette knife, you really wouldn't get interesting effects for the scale of the piece. I think this is about it's either a 4x4 or a 5x5. Okay, I've gone ahead and decided, since it's more of an experiment with the palette knife work and getting some movement and see how I like it, I'm going to go ahead and use this base of the sketch I had before on the previous painting and use that as a base for the new painting. And I'll take off the camera off the tripod here and show you the colors I'm going to be using. It's going to be a limited palette just to not have too much to worry about there and work more on applying the paint. Okay, excuse the paint back here. That's from another session, but I'm just going to be using the ivory black, not too much of that. I'm really going to try to stick to titanium white, ultramarine blue, cadmium lemon, and naphthol red. It's like a synthetic red. I bought that, I think it was last summer. I bought some synthetic colors to play around with because I've been using some traditional colors, cadmium yellow, burnt umber, things like that. Thought I'd try something new. So that's what we're going to use today, and we'll get rolling here. Okay, I kind of got it zoomed in here to let you really see the paint application as I do it. And to start, and I'm going to confess up front here, I'm not a palette knife expert. I've incorporated it in my work. There's some great videos I've come across on YouTube that some people really can control that palette knife. And of course they're using many different palette knives. So I'm going to try to do everything with this palette knife right here. Because maybe in the field or that sort of thing, really kind of leaning into that a bit about carrying excess equipment. So I'm going to see how far I can get with this. All right, and I think I'll experiment with just getting a fair amount of white on there. And I'm not just going to slap things on. Maybe I'm going to try to pay attention. And you can see as you scrape off the paint, it ghosts some of the pink through there, so that's effects you can use too. And let's get a little ultramarine blue in there. And I think for me, in past experience with practicing with this idea, is you will go through parts in the painting where you're thinking, what the hell is going on? It looks like crap. And you just have to keep carrying on and playing with how you might apply paint. That's why it's good to practice on some panels, some old paintings that you're never going to do anything with, that maybe had some good bones, but you're not sure what to do with them. This would be a perfect opportunity to experiment. And off scene, I'm trying to keep it zoomed in there so you can see the paint. I'm wiping between strokes on paper towels, of course. And if you think you got too much paint, I'm thinking obviously you can just take some of that off, and I'm saving it down below in the palette, which I'll show you later. You might introduce more white. Just playing around with moving the paint kind of to the side, and then maybe flat strokes. You can see what you can get. Now let's say there's going to be a field back here, and I'm thinking of a stream down in here, so let's see where this goes. I have a little bit of the blue was still on my palette knife. I purposely knew that it would have a little green effect by leaving it there, so now I'll wipe off, and maybe I'm mixing ultramarine blue and the cad lemon off scene. Pulling some of that over here, so just playing around. And this is important to do these play dates in the studio, because this is how we're going to expand our knowledge base for mark making and all that sort of thing. I may not do anything with this after I do this little demo, but I'm retaining in my memory, of course, applications of paint, how I applied marks that could be useful for the work I normally do. And maybe this takes someone in a new direction. I've incorporated some of that naphthol red into the mixture now, and it's really coming out with some nice little brown effects. Kind of cool, kind of cool. Let's naphthol red. Just have a hint of that greenish color left over on the palette. I'm mixing mostly the naphthol red and the ultramarine blue. And I'm sorry I don't have another camera set up to have a palette video and video with the me mixing on the palette, but I will try to work on that. I know when I've used my Canon ELPH camera up here in studio with these LED lights, the in footage seemed to have that little flickering effect. It really kind of annoyed me because I liked how the camera shoots and stuff. Here's naphthol red and ultramarine blue, this kind of earthy purple. Just getting some dark of a tree, and we'll try to finesse these later as it progresses. Getting some green. I'm mixing a little bit of the sky blue into cad lemon ultramarine blue. I wanted to try to do distant, let it intermix a little with the tree color there. Kind of cool, kind of cool. We're obviously not going to have, I mean, I'm not really too concerned about composition in this exercise. I want to try to focus all my mental energy on, because I'm not super familiar with palette knife painting techniques, to just really focus on that. I mean, I'll try to do a little okay job, because by nature, intuitively, having painted a lot, you kind of, you know, the typical S-curve kind of idea that everyone talks about. So that's what we'll try to mimic here. Some pure cad lemon. You can even stipple with the palette knife. Really allows you some, and depending on how much you clean, like you can clean between every mark, or knowing you have a faint hint of color, knowing how that's going to interface with what you're putting on there is kind of cool. Let's get some base of the stream in, just using some white. I'm holding the knife at a slight angle, not flat. So you can apply it flat if you want, like get some paint on there, pull it down, and then kind of cut across. Cut across, pull down. Could be an interesting effect for color. Get a little of your sky blue in there, pull down. And just see what we can get here. Kind of interesting. Kind of And it's always a push-pull effect. You know, you're constantly cutting back and forth, and that's just the way. I'm sure there's obviously, and especially using one tool, if you're using a collection of palette knives, you would have more control over not having to reestablish elements in the painting. And you can shape around the tree by pushing the paint in, stop, wipe, and keep doing that effect to get paint where you want it. And then you can take the tip of the palette knife and create a leaf effect potentially. So that's kind of cool. Clean brush, a clean palette knife, you can soften as much as you feel you need to for edges. So that's what's going to make this style of painting, in my opinion, from what I've seen from people that have way better control than I do, it gives you that visual interest of hard edges and soft edges. And we're going to put some clouds in there, and what I'm going to do is wipe out. You won't get down to the original tone. You end up just kind of to your base that you have for whatever you toned your panel. But I already like some of this pinkish tone coming through there. We're going to mix up some white, a little bit of cad lemon, off scene here, and think about some clouds. Don't muddle yet. I'm going to try to zoom in a little more so you can really see the meat. The key for me, the struggle's always been for me, for my own artistic journey. I really love rendering form, and you can see if you follow me on Facebook at Habowskistudio, my art page. I'm working on a painting of some lobsterman bibs on a fishing shack that was really coming out great. And while I have some textures in there, it's nothing like the texture here. But so I do struggle because I enjoy the look of paintings like this. But I want to somehow I am working on integrating elements of this type of painting into my more realistic paintings. So I really invite you to check out the Facebook thing, because I do a lot of posting of paintings in progress and paintings that, you know, I don't necessarily make a YouTube video of because I'm just painting and want to concentrate on that. So you should check it out. You can see some past posts. All right, looking kind of cool. Already it's just has some meat to it. And of course, do your traditional, everyone does this, wiping out to your ground to create tree trunks. Okay, also what's cool is I was poking around Home Depot, and I'm always looking around like gadgets and things because I'm that kind of person. Is I found these, a 3-pack. I've actually cut the smaller one, but a 3-pack of applicators that was in this section where they have the Bondo for like fiberglass. If you want to patch a hole, I guess, in your car, you got the fiberglass, then the Bondo, and you would use these to smooth out the Bondo. So I was looking at these and went, they would be good paint manipulators for working on a painting. So I took one of them and I just cut it in a different shape, 2 different shapes, and I'm going to try this small one, and you'll see what we'll see what it can do. Okay, the anticipation of this is that, you know, I'm working on panel, and while this idea will work with canvas too, panels just, you can get right back to your smooth surface and have that smoothness with the roughness around. Or if you want to, your paint's maybe getting too thick in a spot, you want to correct an area, that kind of thing potentially. But I thought I'd play around with it with the water because depending on how your angle that you pull down, it can either be more into the paint or just taking off the top parts of the thick impasto. So let's try that first. Let me show you. If this is the panel side view here, I'm pulling more down like this, not too much like that. So the angle, always, always go, if you're not sure what it's going to do, go less like this. I mean, go more like this and less more intense until you want to commit. So let's try it out. New to me also, but I have some educated guessing how the result's going to turn out. So we can, and the key is going to be wiping off. So ready? Pull down. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Now, do a stroke, especially if you're not familiar with this, do a stroke and observe what it's doing. I don't know if you can see this. Let me check it out. It's kind of creating squiggly lines a bit. And I'm going to use that for pulling down and potentially creating hopefully an effect. Maybe you can sort of simulate cut across reflections, water ripples kind of idea. And then I can intensify certain parts for highlights with the palette knife. So you can go back and forth. The trick is, and it's a learning curve, is to not make it look like a waterfall, but so still pretty cool, still pretty cool. And let's say you want to see, I'm now more into the panel like this over here. Let's see what happens. Takes it down to the original paint surface I had there, pull. And I could see this being real useful in my urban paintings to control edges. So let's say I want to take all that paint off. What's that do? What's that do? I don't know. But we can see levels. And I could see, man, like say you were doing a field in, you know how Ireland has all those patchy fields, how controlled tools like this, small different sizes, could be really useful for creating an effect. The key is going to be, obviously here I'm trying to show you techniques and ideas. You got to be careful making painting too busy. You need some resting spots, obviously, right? But it's pretty cool. Now let's see. Pretty wild. And what happens when I do, like you think about this because you're thinking of progression of perspective planes in the landscape, but what happens when I go completely against that idea and take out a whole section? That is pretty, I mean, this could be so interesting as a painting. And then you can go back in. Now I'm mixing up naphthol red with some of that cad lemon, and I can reapply a highlighted plane. So very, very cool. I'm going to get this back here. Do a little more of the distant back here, that hill. A little more of just ultramarine blue. A little bit of the naphthol red with some white. I want to see what that purple is going to look like as I pull out its more individual color characteristics with some white added. Blue, and that, get that purple back there. Wow. Really liking this. Fun. It's like a lot of fun. Then, you know, my mind's just racing about how I could use this in my regular paintings, or maybe I need to do more of this because it's like you have control, but you don't have control. So it's really, and all with this so far in that little tool I showed you. So you could cut these into thinner strips, have an 1/8 inch one, like if, you know, so pretty cool. And I think this whole little set, maybe I think was $5 or something. So you never know. And I know some artists out there have used like pieces of scrap mat board. You only get several uses out of those in a painting, then you throw out those strips. But if you come across a lot of that, if you do a lot of matting of other paintings or something. So this is just an idea, and you know what? I'm actually going to not muddle around with it too much, but I am curious how I can use this tool. I'm going to mix up some color on the palette, just getting a dark purple. It doesn't, you know, I'm not too concerned about getting something. I just want to mimic, if I want to put some tree trunks in, like maybe a dead tree by the, just see how I can apply taking this tool and using this like a palette knife on my palette. Matter of fact, I'm going to kind of pan down for a second. I'm using this as a palette knife, and I'm just scooping up, trying to get it along an edge. See how we have that? Now let's go up to the paintings and see if we can create some effects of trees. And I'm just going to barely touch the surface of the painting. Okay, wish me luck. Let's say there's a tree that lives here. I'm just putting the paint on and pulling ever so slightly. Maybe there's a branch off like that. Maybe this one blows completely off scene. And we'll have to put a little bit down here. It's obviously very strong. I think if you did something like this, I'm going to just test and move that a little bit with just the tip of the knife to create the reflection. And get some paint on the edge of my knife. And try to pull. So it's obviously the color is just a dark color just for the point of the exercise here, but you can mix this up a little warmer, cooler, whatever. So let's see what happens now when I overlay with an orangey tone that I mix from the cad lemon and the red, because it's still a little bit dirty from what was on there before. Touch over this. Very cool. So if you're careful, and if you think you're going to be a little unsteady with your hand, that's what maul sticks are for. Just lean it on your easel, steady your hand, and apply the paint that way. So pretty cool. Like it. Like it. So you can see how far away this technique can give the illusion of reality, even though it's very chaotic, as we notice when we zoom in here. How you really start to see the pronounced detail in the paint application, and it's just so exciting. I love it. Okay, so I gotta say, this was a lot of fun. We're gonna wrap up this play date in the studio, and I think I want to do this sort of thing again to kind of spin some videos just talking about techniques and really try to get close and in depth about ways of mark making to improve your paintings. And please let me know what you think of this formatted video, and if you'd like to see more of them, that sort of thing. With winter approaching here in Maine, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the studio. I got some paintings to finish and all that good stuff. So let me know in the comments. And if you're new to the channel and first time watching, I invite you to check out my other videos also. I have some plein air demos and other studio demos of actual paintings rather than exercises such as this. So check that out. And I invite everybody to follow me on Facebook at habowskistudio and take a look at my website, www.habowskistudio.com. Of course, the links are in the description box below. So until next time, take care. Bye.